Okay, so this is our exit interview for our Biology 11 Big Ideas workshop. And today Halima is going to walk us through her final portfolio piece, and then we'll chat a little bit about some highlights from the course, and we'll close with an assessment, co-assessment of her work. Sound good, Halima?
Yes.
All right. How about you share your screen with me so that for the recording it's captured, okay. And you can walk me through your final portfolio piece.
Let me know when you see it.
Oh, yeah, it's there. Perfect.
Okay, so this is my winter bird project. My objective is to observe local birds and measure the species diversity of birds at my feeder. And this is the methods I use to make my bird feeder, and some instructions, and some pictures of it. And this is the bird food we used, the bird seeds. And then, yeah, these are just the ingredients inside of the bird seeds. And I just have some safety considerations and some information about what I fed the birds. So I did it for 15 minutes per day in the early afternoon. And then I have beside each picture something about a chickadee, so like where they live and where they like to hang out. And then the songbird. And there's actually something interesting I realized is that apparently in more wet and coastal areas, these sparrows have darker plumage than sparrows in different climates. Because when they're darker, they're more stronger and they are better against like harsh weather and things like that. And here.
So that's an adaptive trait the species has developed.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
Very cool.
Yeah. It's called melanin, which is in the darker plumage. And a bit about woodpeckers and how that their angled beaks are used as a chisel, and that they have sticky tongues to catch insects. And a hummingbird. This is really interesting too. I didn't know that hummingbirds seek out protection with hawks, and they like to live underneath hawk nests because the biggest predator to a hummingbird are jays, and hawks obviously jays don't go near hawks because hawks are really big and scary. So when they stay underneath hawks, they have like a little protection zone. It's called a hummingbird safety zone from the jays.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And I think you kind of zoomed past the woodpecker, but I do believe as well the woodpeckers have a lot of symbiotic relationships with smaller bird species because they do a lot of the hard work, right? Because of the design of their beak. And tongue, and their strategy for feeding, that they're actually like really disassembling the outer layer of the bark to actually get some of those bugs out. So then when they leave, other birds are then given access to an area of the tree that they wouldn't have their own ability to get to.
And this is a black-eyed junco, or dark-eyed junco. Yeah, dark-eyed junco. And these birds are like one of the most common ones. You can find them in Alaska and all the way down to Mexico. And the recent approximation is that there's about 630 million of these birds, which is why we see them everywhere, I guess.
And you can speak from experience knowing that every single person in your class for this presentation, they all were tracking that bird at their feeder.
Exactly. This looks a bit dark, I just realized, but hopefully you can see it. It's just my species count. And some days I got like 0. Some species like I had like 20, and then some I had 0. I didn't really know why, but I do know that on the snowy day, no birds came because everything was frozen and cold. But
yeah, well, yeah, definitely the weather plays a huge role in who's going to actually show up for feeding and at what hour.
Yeah, and I was surprised that even when it was raining really bad, they still came, even though everything was wet. Yeah, I didn't expect that. So this is my discussion, and I wrote about chickadees and like where they live and their personality traits, what they eat, their species classification, And I learned that chickadees, the difference between their summer and winter eating habits is that in winter, their diet has about 50% animal material, but in summer, the animal material can be like 90% of what they eat every day. And then dark-eyed juncos. I learned that for dark-eyed juncos, they actually allow subspecies into their flocks when wintering ranges overlap. So you can even see some other sparrows hanging out with them and bluebirds once in a while, which I thought was really interesting.
Oh, that's quite unique, actually, to bird populations. Many bird populations are fairly territorial.
I know, it's really interesting.
Mm.
Yes, you can see them hopping around on the ground because they are like to forage underneath bird feeders and things like that. And then the species class, the scientific classification. And for song sparrows, yeah, these are really common as well. They're open woodland birds and ground foragers as well, and they really like open habitats like your backyard, overgrown fields, marshes, and forest edges. And I live in a marshland, so that's why we get a lot of them as well. And they eat lots of insects and seeds, which change depending on the seasons. Because in fall and winter they eat more seeds than insects, and in summer and spring they eat more insects than seeds. And I noticed that most birds eat more like meat during the spring and summer than like seeds and things. And scientific classification. And this is something fishing, which I know I never knew the word to it. Like I know that people do it all the time, which is when you make a whistling type of sound to call birds and things like that. But I didn't know it was called fishing and that it actually worked. And the reason why it works is because many birds respond to these noises because they're curious, and also when humans make it, it's not as like sing-songy as the bird, it's more raspy, and that sounds similar to an alarm call made by small birds. So when the birds come, they're seeing if there's any predators there and things like that. So we sound like a predator to them. They want to check it out and see what's going on. And then usually like chickadees and things like that, when they notice it's just a human, they like to hang around because they're really interested in figuring out where unknown sounds come from.
I'm so glad we stumbled across this, because I remember the first time I came across this piece of information, and I was actually quite shocked. Because a lot of birders are saying that they're, trying to be like at one with nature and really polite to the areas that they're going into. But yeah, the fishing sound is an alarm bell for species. It's actually putting them into like a fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
In their nervous system. They think something's up, and they that's why they're coming around. So yeah, it's interesting, but then it eventually does calm them back down.
Yeah. And I have some extra information on the hummingbirds. And yeah, they came a lot on the third and fourth day. And yeah, the second day didn't come because I'm pretty sure it was raining. But that's just my count on them. And so the male hummingbirds are red and the females are green. And this is a bee hummingbird, which is the smallest bird in the world. And it's not much bigger than an actual bee, hence the name. And I thought it was really, really cute. And I didn't know it was the smallest bird in the world, too. But this is a kid's hand.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, what a find.
Yeah. You can really see how small it is, even compared to a hummingbird, which is small anyways. So my scientific classification, and then, yeah, the hummingbirds in my area are called Anna's hummingbirds, and they're very common among the Pacific coast. And these hummingbirds are actually a tiny bit bigger than other ones, which is strange because they're really small to me. And they like to be in the open woodland, and you can spot them in many areas. And I'm pretty sure everyone knows this, but yeah, they eat nectar from flowering plants, which can be currants and gooseberries and eucalyptus. Along with the nectar, they also eat many types of small insects from places like crevices and spiderwebs. They can be like leafhoppers, whiteflies, and I don't know how to say that, midges. And also, yeah, so we're talking about the woodpeckers. So when tree sap leaks from holes made from them, the hummingbirds have the opportunity to eat any insects caught in the syrup.
Exactly.
Stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad
So
you captured that.
Yeah. Found a whole bunch of fun facts for hummingbirds. They can pollinate as many as 1,500 flowers in an average day of feeding. And the bee hummingbird, their eggs that they lay are the same size as a green pea, which is so super tiny. And since they're so small, sometimes they're mistaken for insects. I can just imagine a tiny little hummingbird flying around my face. And I'm like, oh, it's a fly, but it's just a hummingbird.
Amazing. We might have to skip through some of the other details so that we have time to reflect as well during this meeting. I'm not sure how many more slides are there.
There's a couple more. And yeah, this is a bit about interdependence. Yeah. And how plants provide food for birds while trees provide shelter and a home for birds. And plants also give oxygen out, which is what keeps the birds alive and everything. And trees provide a safe place for birds. And then the birds will eat any bugs that might be harming the trees while they're roosting or something, which is interdependence. And yeah, and I'm pretty sure the decomposing of the animals is the nitrogen cycle. When
definitely contributes to it, yeah.
Yeah.
As well as the carbon cycle as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Putting more carbon into the soil.
So they become a natural fertilizer for plants. And that conclusion, it's just that I learned a lot about birds, interdependence, and the beauty of nature. And I really appreciate birds much more now. And whenever I look at one, I want to learn more about it. And that's about it, I think. And then I have my references here. And that is.
Oh, I love your conclusion. That's wonderful. It's my hope and dream for everyone in any course that they take. So open up the document I shared with you, or you can actually do a little bit of written. We actually don't have to go through too much written reflection because we're recording this interview, so it allows us to just include the link instead. But we can do these first ones. So a few descriptive words that capture your feeling about your portfolio piece.
Amazement. There's so much I didn't know, and I learned a lot. It was really intriguing as well.
So you can type. Why don't you type those right into the document here? Yeah.
Okay. Intriguing. What did I say for? Oh no, I forgot. It was intriguing.
You were saying
I learned a lot.
Yeah, intriguing. You learned a lot. Opened up lots of doors.
Yeah. I don't know if I should actually, if I'm allowed to, is it just words they want me to write?
Yeah, just a few words in this one. That's all you need.
It was intriguing. It was interesting. Very interesting. And it was very. Is there a word for when you learned a lot?
Educational.
Yeah, there it is. Educational. What big ideas can you identify for others? Oh yeah, the big ideas were, I kind of forgot them.
You don't have to have them word for word, but definitely the interconnected, how all species are interconnected. I'd say that was
focus
in your conclusion.
Mainly on interdependence. In my portfolio. And the processes behind their creation.
Learning, and the processes behind their creation. I think that's good. What about the third one? Identify any learning processes that were new for you. So for your choice of project for this final portfolio, I noticed that you were doing a lot of, it wasn't just a written project, right? There was a lot of observation and data collection involved. prior to you coming up with a conclusion.
Yeah.
So we could reflect a little bit on that, because I think that that's, you know, it makes a lot of sense to do it that way. We don't often get the opportunity to take that much time prior to actually sharing our final thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with the specific project that you chose, this ornithology topic and bird observation in general, I think that caters really well to your learning style, getting that time to kind of saturate and digest information prior to and having to share it. So we can say observation prior to drawing conclusions as a lesson. And were you surprised by any of the end results that you were able to come up with?
I was surprised about how easily you can get birds to come and like feed from your feeders, even if you do live in kind of a busy area like me, like beside a road and things like that.
Awesome. Can you identify a next step or a question that you might want to explore?
I want to see if there's, using different kinds of bird feeders, if I can attract different kinds of more species and things like that. I want to see what else is there, what else is out there.
Nice.
And maybe different
Great
kinds
question.
of food and things like that.
Amazing. Okay, then we'll include the link for our exit interview here. And now let's do a little assessment. So when we're talking about the assessment, we'll mainly be talking about this final portfolio piece that you've created, which is awesome. And I'm so happy that you stuck with the bird study, because right when I introduced it to you, it's something that you're really excited about. So it's cool to see you follow through. Okay, so we have 4 different categories and different grades for each category. So the first one is complete, sharing that it's a cohesive presentation and your knowledge tells a good story from start to finish. How do you feel you did in this category?
Is it out of 2, so you get like a 1 or 2?
Well, it could be a 1.5, it could be 1.7. You can definitely have 2 significant figures. Yeah.
I think I did it. I feel like I organized it pretty good. I spent a lot of time on it, and I tried to include like everything I need and more. But,
yes. Well, let's put some notes here. So it was
another perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that your presentation was so clear and so cohesive, and I would definitely put a 2 out of 2 for this one. Like it was very. I can't think of anything else that you would want to add in there. Yeah. So I feel like you approached it from all angles, which was really great. Creative, original, personalized, sharing something additional that was not originally asked of you, and shows your interest within the topic. Thoughts on this?
I think this was the most interesting thing I've ever done in like high school. So.
Wow, that's amazing! Really?
Yeah. I was really having fun.
I'm gonna quote you.
Ooh, I got quoted.
Captured. We are recording this, so that's amazing, Halima. Wow. And so why was it the most interesting thing you've ever done? There was a lot of freedom associated with it?
I think all the freedom, and I love animals so much. I was really excited when I got to like do something with animals, and I like researching things independently and really having the freedom to, go where I want with it. It's nice.
Nice. Love that. Oh, there's all sorts of sounds happening today. So now I think the construction is stopped, but you'll hear that the neighbors are jamming now. So there's a pretty awesome calypso band that practices a few doors down. It's quiet right now. I should probably stay that way.
Cool.
Okay, so then out of 2, this one was sharing additional information of things that weren't asked. What I love is that you brought in, you went so far as to think about the nitrogen cycle, which is wonderful, and that's showing a huge depth of knowledge and a drawing on something that you already learned a little bit about in Science 10.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you pulled that in, Halima, because it wasn't asked of you, but it shows that you are really knowledgeable about the interconnections of all of these pieces that you've learned about in this course, right? And that, like, it's the systems that keep these species alive, right? So we really do have to honor all of these systems that are constantly cycling nitrogen, all these amazing elements within our environment. It's a really cool additional point for me to see.
Awesome.
So yeah, what would you give yourself at a 2 for that one?
I can't give myself
You're clearly. No, you definitely can. Let's give you a 2 because you are so.
Okay.
You're so sweet in your delivery. I know you're so excited about this stuff, and that just melts my heart because I can just see that if we gave ourselves 2 hours to talk about this today, you would have loved it as well. You could just talk about it forever, and you've put a lot of passion into this, and I think that that's what this category is talking about, right? Is making it your own and challenging your knowledge. So that's great. The next passage, the next topic is and related to the big ideas.
I think
so expanding your biological knowledge of the subject and expanding your vocabulary.
I think pitching is the only new word I put in. Oops.
No, you had melanin as well.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I have 2 new words. Did I expand my biological knowledge? I learned a lot.
I think every species had fun facts and stuff for that one.
Yeah, cool. Like a 3.
Okay. I think that's pretty good as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard to give ourselves perfect in that category because there's always more to learn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm assuming in everyone's exit interviews that this will be the one category where there'll be a little piece that we'll leave you with, so that you guys will continue to go off and learn more about these topics, not just feel like you're an expert. The last category is daring endeavor. So clearly explored new territory in this project and had some fun along the way.
I definitely had fun.
Yeah, let's give you a 2 out of 2 for this one as well.
Okay.
So then that's a 9 out of 10, which is awesome, a 90% for this piece of it. How's that feel?
Awesome.
Yay, fantastic, Halima. Oh, wonderful. Well, it's so cool seeing what you created, and I love hearing your plans to continue on with this project. I think the question of at the beginning of this document saying, what's one thing now that you want to study, or one place you want to go with it, is a really important question. And we should always ask ourselves that when we find ourselves interested and intrigued about topics we're learning. So I hope you follow through with that and keep studying words. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.